All right, we are back with another episode of On the DELO. This is episode 103. That's 103 for those of you that can't follow. Hello, Jeff. Good morning.
What's happening?
How are you?
I'm great.
Is this the earliest I've seen you?
In the day?
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't recall. We've been seeing a lot of each other.
You go to the Henry a lot. Is that your favorite hangout?
Favorite? Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite. I don't have a ton of other in the kind of stable right now, but yeah, spending a lot of time
there. You go. Well, you just got here, right, from New York?
Fresh.
So how long? Yeah, how long have you been here?
I think it was about September 10th.
Okay. God, it goes by fast.
It does go fast.
That's when you moved here?
Yeah.
Holy crap! That's like 2 months ago.
I know. Yeah. So my wife, daughter, and I, and we decided to. I don't want to say escape New York City, but did spent a bunch of years there since 2006, and wanted to check out some sun for a little bit.
Yeah, I bet. What brought you to New York to begin with?
Following college, went to Penn State University. I was a finance and international business major, and first job out of college was an investment banking job at a Canadian investment bank called TD Securities.
Wow.
And the idea there was probably spend a couple years and, go maybe build a business, do something after that. But I would say maybe the greater financial markets, had a different idea there. 2008 was a little hairy. And, I remained at the investment bank for probably about 9 years.
What did you learn doing that? Like, what is an investment banker?
That's a great question. When we started off, my role was, since it was a Canadian investment bank, a lot of it was based on a credit relationship. Certainly, I would say Canadians tend to be more conservative, so a lot of banking relationships very much revolve around, having a long-standing credit relationship. Mm-hmm. So started off there, was supporting a team that, basically was providing credit and other services that a bank provides to Fortune 500 companies. But then I had, 2008, was approached with an opportunity to sort of be employee one in a group that was buying a bunch of structured asset-backed securitization, residential mortgage-backed securitizations, and commercial.
Was there a movie about that?
There's a movie about that. I'll say ours was a bit more reactionary. The bank had purchased another bank at a significant discount. This was after, kind of a lot of things were happening in late 2008. And myself and a few other folks were tasked with going through that portfolio.
Holy cow.
And identifying, what still kind of had quality and what didn't. We had purchased it at a pretty big discount. So we went through that, and we were successful in identifying those, and then that sort of opened up some opportunity to go now buy more student loans and credit card loans and auto loans that are all packaged up together.
Yeah.
As well as residential mortgage-backed securities and some commercial mortgage-backed securities. So what did we learn? Learned a lot. I think very high level in the banking space. It's attention to detail.
Yeah.
You learn how to, use a lot of different systems. Certainly honed my Excel and spreadsheet skills significantly, but a really, really good job of kind of thinking holistically around, a lot of problems, whether that's an individual company in credit or you're talking about commercial mortgage-backed securitization that is, $1.5 billion, $2 billion, and it has 100 different loans to the small strip mall down the street to a large, Simon Property Class A mall, a large building on, Fifth Avenue in New York. So it gave you a really good opportunity to sort of analyze and understand and then concisely communicate back, like the positives, the negatives, and of each of those kind of investments.
All right, so let me simplify this because you're really smart. I'm not. And I want to simplify this. You've got I'm just going to call it a bank. You got a bank. The bank's job is to loan money. And then when they loan money, what happens is it's not for free. the person, let's say the shopping mall that they're loaning the money to, because they got to, buy a bunch of shit, including the mall itself and whatever else, and they got to operate it and do all this stuff. There's going to be a percentage, which is called interest, right? So we just say it's 5% interest, $1 million. Now the bank is getting a payment, usually more interest than principal. If that's the case, if they're actually buying the property itself, and so now the bank doesn't just have that one loan; they've got thousands of loans, and this is legitimate. This is how banks make money, correct? It's not really on deposits because it's not real money.
Yes, what I would say is that the benefit to packaging up a bunch of different loans for commercial mortgage assets, or again, credit card loans from individuals, are that you're then creating a product that is larger than one single loan. Okay. Which then enables a lot of different companies and financial institutions to get much easier to get exposure at a larger level. So by bundling these together, it's easier, and these are going to sound like big numbers, to purchase $100 million of the $1.5 billion of the entire kind of bond that has been wrapped with now 100 individual commercial mortgage, assets. And so that does it. It creates a liquidity opportunity for these smaller borrowers. Yeah. So it really opens up the market, and you have tons and tons and tons of international money. Obviously, significantly gets involved in this as well. And I certainly can get into structure, but I think the way to think about it is if the price of the bond or the vehicle that's being purchased by the investor is $100, there's $130 worth of collateral in that bond. Right. So ideally, you do have sort of opportunity if there are going to be some losses.
Yeah, there's not $90 worth of collateral.
Exactly.
You would never make that deal.
Exactly. So, this is basically an opportunity for the banks to provide a service, capture and originate a lot of loans, and then, yes, go ahead and sell those loans to buyers that, do want exposure to, those types of assets. So, and for themselves, there's a lot of mandates and regulation that the bank on its own also does have direct exposure to individual real estate as well as some of these assets. Yeah. But there are limits. So that's why they can't just originate and hold everything on the balance sheet, right? So they have to, sell that off.
Above my pay grade.
Yeah.
Penn State education there for you.
No, I don't know about that.
All right, so you get done doing all that, you get really smart, and then what's your next phase of life? Like I know eventually what we want to get into is hospitality technology. I want to talk with you about that and kind of what you know about it, but kind of give us a little transition in life here.
Yeah. I think stepping back even, it was before that. Growing up, our family, I would say everything revolved around eating. So you're having, one meal and you're talking about where the next meal is going to be. Right. I grew up in Philadelphia, right outside Philadelphia, in an area called Lower Merion. And again, from my grandparents, my grandmother lived down in Center City. We would end up there once or twice a week. Every Sunday night, we would have family dinner down at a restaurant. Really, that's where I experienced a lot of culture growing up. Yeah. Certainly spending a lot of time, super young before, whether it was a Flyers, Sixers, Eagles game, going to Chinatown with my father and, having noodle soups and things like that. It really kind of gave me the bug to experience and travel. From, I think, my age of about 10 to 20 years old, my father then got directly involved in, and my family, we all worked in the business, was an operator of some bagel franchises, some stores called Manhattan Bagel. So that's where I cut my teeth, a little child labor. I was working on Saturdays in the morning, not hanging with my friends, and would complain. And my dad would tell me to go pack sand. Yeah. But I really got the bug, and I really enjoyed it. So I did everything from, making the bagels to really helping, operate the stores. But I will say that, went to college and it was successful for my family and my father, but it was tough. He was working his 120-hour weeks. The amount of times that he was sort of bailing, certain employees out of jail, or having to make come and fill in for the baker at 3 a.m.
Oops.
Yeah, there were challenges. So we saw all of that firsthand, and when my father, fortunately was able to sell those locations, he did have some direct advice for me. Don't ever get into this industry. And I think that transitions to, I was at Penn State. I was a finance major. I was going to go do, kind of this finance route. Ultimately gave you the finance background, but fortunately during my time in my 20s, I was, investing a little bit in early stage companies, always had this really entrepreneurial itch, and was super, super interested in the, the venture space, and sort of, acting as an angel for some companies. And it just reached a point where I wasn't really doing what I know I love to do and want to do.
Yeah.
And that's where the transition, went and worked in finance, but got the itch and, really wanted to get into kind of this growth space. And that's how I ended up finding, kind of coming full circle and connecting restaurants with finance and data. And
but hold on, let's talk about it. So you're in your 20s and you're quote unquote an angel investor. You're like, I'm going to throw some money. I mean,
very small
stuff. But you're learning,
trying to learn. Make it. By the way, all of those things that I put to work, I don't think any of them were actually successful. In hindsight, what did a lot of those? Why weren't they successful? They were ahead of their time. Now you see companies littered doing those types of things, but it was the right idea at the wrong time, which is obviously not advantageous for an investor.
No, it's not. And if you think about, I mean, even with my experience, even like in the music business, I saw so many bands come through the major labels, and some of them had some great songs, right? But if it didn't hit, it didn't hit. And they never got any further. And it's the same with, investing in these companies. And, we were just talking about an hour ago before you got in here with somebody else. And it's the same, that's the same thing. You'll invest in 100 things and 99 of them will fail.
You put it perfectly. You understand it exactly that way. It really is all the venture business. You're making a lot of bets, and sometimes I think that you're alluding to is even sometimes the best products don't prevail.
For
the best song doesn't, find its way.
So the products that do prevail, from what you have seen, what do you think that what's helped them prevail? What was it? What was the catalyst?
The most important thing is to solve a problem that's existing.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer in enabling, whether it's an incumbent or enabling, that end user that really does have that problem, and helping them directly.
Okay.
I think replacing and displacing solutions, I think you earn that right.
Yeah.
That's something that if you accomplish multiple steps prior, a lot of steps, first you got to be good at one single tiny thing and do that right to earn the right to deserve what you want next.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the most important thing is making sure that whatever you are building, I certainly think it's important to be passionate about it and understand it. That's why, I've come back around to the restaurant industry. Is this is really what is my why and is so interesting. And while I'm not, currently, operating or freshly operated after, it's been a number of years, I stay engaged. I have some investments in, some concepts and things like that. But beyond that, I will never forget, how it feels to see my father, someone not come into work and, him not expected to go in. Maybe he was going to golf that day. Maybe he had to go do something else for business. Well, now he's got to go in. Certainly have seen challenging conversations, from, I think, the things we talk about, someone spills something in the restaurant and no one goes to clean it up immediately.
Right.
There's all these little things that really kind of make up, certainly hospitality. So just to kind of wrap on your question, it's really understanding the end users, what the pains are, and make sure you're identifying whatever solution you have in that process, that it's sort of step zero, that whatever you're solving for them, if it's a little further down the line, well then you need to recognize how are you going to fuel that solution with the inputs that are required to provide that value.
It's a great explanation, because if you really think about it, and if you don't think about it in the context of how big they are now, but how big they weren't before, you look at eBay, you look at Google, you look at, they all solve problems. They also have big problems for people that are now just part of people's everyday life. What would you do without any of those functions? It's crazy.
It's crazy.
So talking restaurant business exclusively, what are some companies you've been involved with? What are some things that you've been able to help, problem solve with, and where has that gone, and where's it at now for you?
Yeah. So in late 2016, I encountered and found a company based out of Philadelphia called Extra Chef. The solution was a restaurant management platform for the back of house. And I use platform loosely here. I probably should not have necessarily said platform, but it was really focused on digitizing the accounts payable process.
Okay.
So restaurants receive, their food bills, their alcohol bills, their rent, liquor, waste, linens, whatever it might be. And you have all of these different vendors that are dropping daily, weekly, invoices and items. And so rather than historically taking those invoices, maybe tossing them into a box for at some point during the week, maybe on a Friday, recording those into your QuickBooks, doing all of this manually, and that's prone to error and challenges around that, we offered an opportunity for them to simply, look, just take a picture right as it comes in. Mm-hmm. We can read it, we can reconcile it, we will auto GL code that to your preferred GL accounting platform, QuickBooks, Intact, things like a Restaurant 365 at the time, Compete, all of the solutions, Xero, all of these types of solutions out there. But the most helpful thing, while that was extremely helpful in itself, and these restaurateurs were amazed by it, we were also reading all the line items. So you have an invoice with 60 line items from a large broad line distributor that has oranges, lemons, limes, trash bags. Well, now we were also reading, 20 by 30 trash bag, the SKU number, the price, and you can really then start to compare pricing. You can identify that.
You mean the technology was reading it?
Yeah.
What you guys said, okay.
Making sure that, the price of the item that you expected is what you received it at. And, I could get into this endless. So, I engaged the company. I said, hey, look, I'm really, really interested in this. They looked a little bit at my background. They were a little skeptical that I would be ready to kind of roll up the sleeves, because basically they said, look, we need people to sell. We need someone to sell. And, I was, fifth employee or so. So I said, great, I'll come in and sell. And we continued to have success there. And ultimately, it was just a really, 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 really great opportunity to help part of the industry that needs it so badly.
This was in New York, or? Okay.
So our team was based out of New York City, and then we were co-headquartered Philadelphia, New York City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you actually go knock on doors and sell?
Sure
Really?
did. Sure did. In the beginning, we did knock on doors, and I would say that, just to be clear, anyone listening out here, there was more of an appetite, in 2016 and 17 to go knock on someone's door and the purveyor to potentially be there. I would say because of a lot of the advancement over these years has also brought some challenges where I think the appetite for someone knocking on a door and soliciting is sort of a little bit non-existent now.
Well, let's just call it how we see it. Nobody has any time anymore. And it's not like people are scared of people coming in. I mean, maybe some people are because of COVID and all this other stuff that's going on. But at the end of the day, especially in hospitality, and we talk about this all the time, and another problem that we're trying to solve, which we can talk about in a little bit, but people don't have any time. When you're in the restaurant industry, you're either making a drink, you're cooking the food, you're talking to a patron, you're trying to pay your bills. I mean, you just don't have time. And so when you randomly walk into a place, hey, I got this thing, it's like, yeah, dude, I don't have time.
And then you couple that with where 5-6 years later now, pandemic happened, and there's just been a lot of headwinds. It was hard to operate then. It's only become more challenging, especially for Main Street.
Why wasn't it called extra accounting? There's no extra chefs cooking.
That's a really great question. So the reason the name came out was for Extra Chef is that when, the two founders were going around originally and kind of soliciting, feedback from chefs, said, well, look, what would you need help with? It's like, well, I need an extra chef to do all the stuff I'm going to do. Yeah. And now that, of course, was all paperwork, which is a great question because chefs didn't sign up to be, accountants and paperwork folks. And so sort of that scale has really shifted. It used to, they were probably doing 80-20, this work they wanted to do, to now moving it more to well, I'm doing a lot of administrative stuff, and this is just kind of, not why I necessarily got into the restaurant industry.
Exactly. So, okay, so you're selling Extra Chef. It's obviously doing well. You're doing good. What ends up happening in Extra Chef?
Yeah, so we're having some really great success, made some great partnerships. We ended up raising a Series A, helped make capital introductions there. And what we identified, we didn't integrate at the time with a point of sale. So we were a back-of-house solution that was basically supporting, call it bookkeepers, accountants, as well as your director of ops, because they were getting visibility into these individual line items. And what ended up happening is, I had a partner out there, a little company called Toast, and identified at a point that there was only way to integrate sales from the Toast point of sale at that time was to use some middleware. So companies like a Zapier or like a Shogo, and call it $50 a kind of a location to just seamlessly get sales information daily from the point of sale into your, call it for this purpose, QuickBooks accounting platform.
Yeah.
Well, at the same time, we sort of had the same customer base because, we were working in that SMB and mid-market, and we similarly would hear, kind of the challenges that these restaurateurs would complain about, well, I can't afford this and I can't afford that. So it became apparent to us, because this is what Extra Chef was really good at. We could integrate any of this information into your accounting platforms. While we were only doing this on the costing side, we thought, what? Why don't we go ahead and see if we can pull the sales down and integrate that via our basically middleware piece into the accounting platform, into QuickBooks. Right now, we're doing this automatically on the cost side. Can we do this on the sales side? And we knew we could do it. And we went ahead and we basically approached Toast a little bit more and said, hey, we've got something super interesting here. This would be able to basically help your current customers. It could remove a fee for them, and we will do this, basically free of charge, because this is what, we did. This is our core business. Yeah. And then certainly for any new business folks, for you, this is now something you don't necessarily need to talk about if they're coming from another solution that might have had an integration. And that proved to be, just super, super valuable. So then, you get into the nitty-gritty, and it's really activating this and having this happen into an organization that is unbelievably impressive and big, and certainly had at that time its sights set on going public. And I don't know, I think they had about 3,000 employees when we had really kind of shook hands and got into a partnership together. Maybe it was about 40,000 locations, second to none, really, really, really awesome team. And so they were laser focused on continuing to execute on what they've been so great at. Yeah. While at the same time, they did recognize that this partner has something that can be extremely complementary for our customer base. But I will say a lot of that onus, certainly, if not all of it, was on a tiny little company called Extra Chef out of Philadelphia to now go support thousands and thousands and thousands of customers.
Wow.
So we went ahead, we did that well, successfully, and earned the right to now have these, restaurateurs' information. And I would say that their expectation had been completed, and now it was basically on Extra Chef to now get creative and have them try to look around the corner at our core product and adopt.
Wow. Well, that's so. You obviously are. I would say you're still involved at some part, or totally out now. So
it was great. Yeah. You want me to finish this story there?
Yeah.
So what ended up happening from that point on is basically we were still in a partnership stage, and then it was on our team, which was an amazing team. I mean, worked with really, really, really some of the best people from top to bottom at the org. It's times that we've all always talk about and reminisce, and I stay close with a lot of folks there. But basically, what we needed to do is, we went and helped out thousands of customers basically for free. They got a ton of value. And what we would do is, after kind of 4 or 5 days, we would give them a call keep in mind, this is for a free product.
Wow.
When have you ever really gotten a call for a free product? And we would just check in on them and say, hey, how's everything going with your new kind of Extra Chef and sync solution? And it's, everything seems to be going really, really great. This is so cool. I'm saving so much time. I can't believe it just appears in there. Like, this is amazing. The money I'm saving so great. And then we would ask them, like, okay, well, would you be interested in trying to do that with the costing side of your business, with all of the invoices? And, they would look at us with 5 eyes, and they would say, I have no clue what you're talking about.
Right.
I'd say, well, let me ask you, like I talked about before, do you get a bunch of invoices with information on them and you manually type them into your GL accounting platform and then you record them somewhere else for the details? Yeah, we do something like that. It's like, well, that's what we can automate. If you just take out your phone that you have in your hand, you can take a picture of that. If you're a super high volume restaurant, you can stack 50, disparate invoices together, all out of order. We'll read all of that for you, and that will appear in your QuickBooks the same way. And if you don't want it to appear in your QuickBooks because you don't trust it, I get it. It can sit inside Extra Chef, and when you get confident in it, hit the button, and it'll go integrate, over automatically. And a lot of these folks were like, whoa, okay, I would like to try that. And we converted an impressive amount of individuals and groups, and they really loved it. And Toast, we certainly reporting back to them on the success we were having, and had a nice partnership, and that did result in certainly LOIs and NDAs and lifting up the hood and looking under. And we were fortunate that in June 2021 we got super, super close with Toast. We were really complimentary to each other, and they decided they wanted to acquire Extra Chef. So then, the story from there, June 21, for me was until about April or May 22. Really helped to run the existing legacy business while helping to integrate the Extra Chef motion into the standard distribution of the Toast, ecosystem. And again, the folks over there really, really, really fantastic, and learned a ton. And it was just amazing to see the leveling up of while this is a unbelievably successful company and was there for when it went IPO. At the same time, super nimble, able to make quick decisions. Meanwhile, you've got 3,000 employees, so it was really, really, really impressive. It was truly still a startup on, on the main stage.
That's really cool. Well, yeah, you were in the thick of probably some of the coolest restaurant technology, that has come in the last however many years. And I don't know if that's saying a lot or not too much, because if you really look at the restaurant industry, as you and I both know, it's a little archaic with how they work things and what goes on. It's not a knock. It's just it's almost like one of these industries that's more manual labor and community driven and stuff like that, to where you have to be in front of people and doing other things other than managing the back end stuff, the back of house, so we call it. So now going through that process, and you're doing stuff now. You're obviously investing in companies. You sit on boards. You do a lot of this other, cool stuff that somebody like you probably enjoys. But like, when you look at restaurant technology as a whole moving forward, what do you think are some of the holes out there that need to be filled?
It's a great question. I think in a way, you zoom out and you think of like, how does any relationship work?
Yeah.
And that means, whether it's you and your significant other, or you and a friend, or you and a stranger, and that needs to kind of develop. So what I'm getting at is integration and cooperation between a lot of platforms. It's very important. At the same time, the other end of that, there's costs there.
Yeah.
And every one of these companies is looking to develop their own solutions. They have their own roadmaps. They have their own aligned interests. But I am just very, very, very hopeful that I do feel as though we're maybe a little bit in a valley right now. These past 5-6 years have been super, super challenging for the restaurateur. I think that they have been over-teched. I think that they are capable, very capable. I think that kind of the way that a lot of this has been presented to them at points has not necessarily aligned with what their expectation, what they heard and what they expected wasn't what was necessarily delivered, and I don't really put blame on either side there. I think that there's just a big kind of delta between, software takes a little bit of time, and it's not all going to work perfectly day one, and we need to have your patience while you're going up against, not against, but your partner there is someone who is, for all intents and purposes, getting kind of punched in the face every day. And as it's less frequent that you're getting that amazing, $50,000 catering order, and probably more frequent that you had a flood, or your refrigerator went down. And if you catch these people at the wrong time, they need someone to kind of let off some steam about, and they don't have the patience.
No.
So although they may have bought in at a time where, like, look, things are looking rosy and great, and let's do the thing, life happens. So I just really hope that companies become a little bit more responsible on what they're able to deliver upon at the moment, and kind of keep all the exciting down the line stuff. If folks are responsible enough to understand that is not coming immediately, that's just really helpful for everyone. And then really most importantly is, not a huge fan of there's a term in the industry of walling the gardens, for certain companies. When you get large, it can be very challenging to manage all of these, software partners that the majority of your customers, some of them want them, some of them prefer, one of three. But your customer's knocking on your door saying you don't integrate with this one solution, and you're a large company. You're like, you're the only customer that wants that one. Is that wrong for the large org to say, look, like, this isn't probably the best use of our resources? No, but in some ways, I don't want to say you have to, but you have to recognize that. So I just really hope that the walling of the garden can tend to, or sometimes, box out some of the best innovation and the best solutions. And right now, I think we're still in this, developing this kind of muscle and this motion in the industry to have the appetite and to understand where I want to be eventually, but know that, look, I'm able to solve 60% of this right now, and the world's going to catch up, and it's going to come, because there's no single solution out there.
No.
Yet I do know, and over the past 5-6 years, the amount of talk from a lot of companies about this is the last this you're ever going to buy, and that there's a consequence to that, and I think in some ways we're experiencing some of that now. So
totally agree. Yeah. Well, I think you and I, for another time, can talk about a solution for some other stuff. But seeing that this podcast goes out to a lot of entrepreneurs, and you are one, I'd like to know, I'd like for them to know kind of just from what it is that you personally like to do day in and day out. What are some of your non-negotiables? What keeps you, thriving and jiving every day, as far as, whether it be mentally or physically or this and that, and making sure that you have time for your family and all that? Yeah.
I would say family is just so important, to start with. See my wife, my daughter, they're just the most fantastic. And I would say, I was at Extra Chef when my daughter was born. She's 2.5 years old, and we had been sprinting for 4 years, which feels great, and I love that. And certainly coming from kind of banking days, long hours, and just used to that. And there's no substitute for hard work, but at the same time, life changed.
Yeah.
And it really opened up my eyes and changed perspective in the most fantastic ways. So I do tell folks that, you used to be able to have a bad day or, a rough couple days. Like, now it's impossible.
Yeah.
Maybe a tough 5 minutes, but whatever.
Right.
So what do I do personally? Wake up in the morning, and fortunate to get to hang with my daughter. And, I have my coffee. She has right now, she has some drink yogurts, some Stonyfield drink yogurts. As a plug.
There you go. Yeah.
And we hang. And so that's pretty therapeutic for me to get the day started in the right way. But then what really drives me is just curiosity. I love learning. I love to be consuming, whether it's podcasts, certainly about the things that I'm hyper interested in, within this industry, and some of the things I'm learning all the time. So that's really, really helpful for me. And having now be fresh, Phoenician, here is. I'm still, kind of on cloud nine of waking up in the morning and the sun's out and I can walk outside. Yeah. Alternatively, living in Chelsea in New York City, it was tough to find the sun, and frankly, it wasn't even a priority.
Right.
So that's really what's got my day. I'm still trying to get into kind of a bit of a routine, but that's really what is kind of encompassing.
All in due time. That's great. All right, some rapid fire questions for you.
All right.
3-hour dinner or a grab and go?
That's a tough question. It depends where we're eating. 3-hour dinner.
All right, there you go. And I would assume like a nice steakhouse or something.
At least.
Yeah, at least. not McDonald's.
Yeah, can't do 3 hours there.
Target or Walmart?
Target.
Yeah. Alanis Morissette or Taylor Swift?
I mean, my generation. Got to go with Alanis.
All right. I know you have a daughter.
Look, I love them both. That's like it's like having 2 children on your own.
Suns or the Knicks?
Suns.
Delta or Southwest?
Delta.
Snow or sunshine?
Sunshine.
In person or Zoom?
In person.
Porsche or Mercedes?
Porsche.
And sea monsters or land monsters?
Sea monsters. I spend less time in the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You think they're more prevalent there?
I got less of a chance of running into them.
For sure. Oh, that's so funny. All right. Well, this was fun. Is there anything that you want anybody to know about you, or I mean?
Not too much, other than look. The one thing I will leave everyone with is that going through this experience is having empathy at the moment. I think going into any restaurant or having any experience, certainly there's a lot of amazing experiences we're always having.
Yeah.
At the same time, I know that more frequently we can be going into places and maybe service is taking a little longer, or there's some challenges. Just having a bit of kind of empathy there is, of course, like. The person on the other end most likely doesn't want that to be happening either, and it's not so much as intentional. But these are something that the industry is working its way through, and hospitality to me always should remain. Can it be more tech enabled? Sure, but I don't think the human aspects go away from it. No. So continue to support Main Street and the local community that really makes there be a soul everywhere here in America.
Yeah.
And I think that'll just be super helpful in kind of getting into this real tech revolution that the industry, is just inevitable.
For sure, and that's very that's very well said, and very. It's just needed, I know that we just got to treat everybody, like humans, and just kind of understand that, some days are good days or bad days for people. And I like the local aspect of what you're talking about too. There's a festival that I sponsor. I have been for like a decade, called Devour, and it's a local food festival out here. It's all local, and so I'll take you to that this year because it's in February. It's at Desert Botanical Gardens. It's beautiful. You walk around and you try all this food.
Amazing.
Yeah, and it's stuff like that people really enjoy. They get to, yes, technology is going to get better and better. I think it's, it will make people's lives better if they choose for it to do that, just kind of like social media. I think social media is wonderful. Can it be used to be not wonderful? Absolutely. I mean, just like anything. Can a car be wonderful? Yes. Get you from A to B. If you drive like an asshole, a car's not so wonderful to other people. So, but Devour it's a great festival. It's about supporting localism, and I'm not saying like the big boys are evil or anything like that, but there's a lot of people that are that have started these establishments and really just grinded it out. And it's really important that you go and support them the best that you can.
You said it. There's enough room for all of them. Yeah, the big folks. We love you, you know, and you know, there's a need for big time, you know, in the community.
100%. And you guys will probably be seeing Jeff, you know, a lot more on my social media and all that, whether he knows it or not, because of we're working on a project together, and he is involved with Sinatra with me, and that has to do with tech and kind of where a lot of this comes from. But more on that later. So thank you for coming.
Yes.
Had fun.
Thanks for having me. I've been finally.
Yeah.
I
know, right?
Only been 2 months.
I hope everybody subscribes. Give it a 5-star. Thanks for listening, and we will check you out soon. Peace.